Welcome to today's Explainer. Get ready, because we are going on a seriously fascinating trip today. We're going to zoom all the way in to look at the microscopic brain cells firing right now inside your head, and then we'll zoom all the way out to look at your everyday fitness routine. We're talking about the incredible science of neurogenesis and how physical movement literally, physically transforms the structure of your mind.
Okay, let's dive into this. To start us off, I want you to take a quick guess. We used to think that the brain you were born with was, well, all you ever got. But based on modern neuroscience, how many brand new brain cells do you think your brain will naturally grow today? Seriously, just take a second and make a guess in your head.
Got a number? Well, the answer is actually between 700 and 1,500. A recent, pretty groundbreaking study by a research team at Harvard University, led by Dr. Rudolf Tanzi, found that your brain is pumping out hundreds of new neurons every single day. Now you might be thinking, okay, I have like 100 billion brain cells in total, so 700 doesn't exactly sound like a lot. But as the research shows, even this relatively small amount of daily new growth is absolutely crucial. Think of these new cells as the missing links. They help maintain and keep the vast existing neural connections throughout your brain totally active.
So, here's our roadmap for the Explainer today. First, we'll cover the myth of static brains. Second, the birth of new neurons. Third, how exercise transforms brains. Fourth, we'll look at aerobic versus strength training. And finally, your cognitive fitness routine.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the myth of static brains. We're rewriting the rules of neuroscience.
For the longest time, the medical and scientific consensus was just incredibly pessimistic. The adult brain was basically viewed as this static, invariable thing that only degenerated. The belief was that as we age, or say if we suffer an injury, we simply lose brain cells and, well, that's the end of the story. But the history of neuroplasticity completely rewrote those rules. It actually all started back in 1964 when a biologist at UC Berkeley named Marion Diamond conducted a really pioneering experiment. She placed rats in an enriched environment, think toys, running wheels, social companions, while keeping others in isolated cages. After 80 days, she discovered the rats in the enriched environment had actually grown thicker cerebral cortices with more blood vessels and thicker neural connections. Fast forward to 2017, and scientists like Dr. Alejandro Schinder at the Loire Institute began mapping exactly how aging neurons connect. Which brings us to today, where Harvard research confirms that massive daily adult neurogenesis is a total reality.
So, the ultimate takeaway from all these decades of research is super clear. The adult brain is not static. It is highly plastic, and it remains adaptive throughout our entire lifespan. The process of growing new cells doesn't just suddenly stop when you reach old age. Your brain is a dynamic, living ecosystem, and it responds directly to how you treat it.
Moving on to Section 2, the birth of new neurons. We're taking a microscopic look inside the hippocampus. So where exactly is all this happening? Let's take that microscopic deep dive and look right inside the memory center of your brain. This biological magic is called neurogenesis, and while it does happen in a few regions, it primarily takes place in a highly specific area of the brain called the dentate gyrus, which is nestled deep inside the hippocampus. This is the exact region of your brain responsible for processing learning and forming both your short and long-term memories.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the protein that makes it all possible, BDNF, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Think of BDNF as high-grade fertilizer for your brain. It's an absolutely essential protein that acts mainly through a receptor called TRK. When BDNF is present, it makes sure that your existing neurons survive, and it directly stimulates the growth and functional connectivity of brand new neurons. It's literally the molecular foundation of neuroplasticity.
But here's the core biological problem we face as we get older. While neurogenesis doesn't stop, the process severely slows down. In an aging brain, new neurons are still being born, sure, but they become what researchers call dormant. Their cables, the dendrites, are short, they're immature, they grow incredibly slowly, and critically, they remain disconnected from the surrounding neural circuitry. Essentially, they're asleep on the job.
Which brings us to Section 3, how exercise transforms brains. Let's talk about waking up those dormant cells.
So, if these new brain cells are lying dormant and disconnected as we age, what on earth is the catalyst that wakes them up? Well, as science overwhelmingly shows, the answer is physical exercise. Let's walk through the exact cardiovascular and neurochemical triggers that happen the very moment you start to break a sweat. Step 1. Your heart rate increases, causing a massive surge of blood flow. Step 2. This forces oxygen and essential nutrients to flood directly into the hippocampus.
Step 3, your body releases that brain fertilizer we just talked about, BDNF, as well as a really fascinating liver enzyme called GPLD1. And finally, step 4, this chemical cocktail bathes the hippocampus, causing those dormant, disconnected stem cells to rapidly mature into fully functional, wired-in neurons. It's amazing!
I absolutely love how Dr. Mariela Trinchero, a lead researcher at the Lilloye Institute, describes this whole phenomenon. After studying how physical activity impacts aging brains, she actually observed the neurons rapidly extending their dendrites and forming connections. She said, it's as if they were given the order to wake up, plug in, and get to work.
And this brilliantly illustrates the real-world power of this process. In the laboratory, researchers took old sedentary mice and gave them running wheels, and these older mice started running an astonishing 10 to 20 kilometers a day. After just 3 weeks, scientists looked at their brains under advanced microscopes. The active neural connections in these older mice identically mirrored the robust, healthy neural networks of young mice. The physical exercise literally reversed the cellular aging in their brains. No way, right?
All right, Section 4, Aerobic versus Strength Training. Different movements mean different benefits.
So, we know exercise works, but let's zoom out from the microscope back to the gym floor, because different types of physical movement actually yield entirely different cognitive benefits. Let's contrast the two. Aerobic exercise, like swimming, running, or cycling, is famous for boosting blood flow, oxygen, BDNF, and a vascular growth factor called VEGF. This specifically increases the volume of your hippocampus and strengthens your long-term memory. On the flip side, we have strength training. Lifting weights causes your muscles to release unique molecules called myokines, like irisin, which actually cross the blood-brain barrier. Strength training specifically increases gray matter in the basal ganglia, which improves your motor control, enhances executive function, and significantly reduces symptoms of anxiety and depression.
Now, maintaining this neuroplasticity through regular exercise acts as a massive protective shield against some severe neurodegenerative conditions. The clinical evidence shows that for Alzheimer's disease, aerobic exercise lowers hippocampal atrophy and sustains memory performance. For Parkinson's, aerobic workouts boost dopamine availability, while strength training improves balance and functional independence. And for depression and anxiety, regular exercise lowers your baseline cortisol, boosts serotonin, and helps regulate the body's entire stress response system.
Finally, Section 5, your cognitive fitness routine. Let's look at some actionable steps for a sharper mind.
So, the crucial point is, how do we take all of this microscopic science and actually apply it to our daily lives? Let's build a highly practical, actionable routine based on the latest neurological guidelines. Here is your holistic prescription for a sharper mind, sourced directly from Harvard Medical School and top neuroscience institutes. First, aim for 150+ minutes of moderate aerobic exercise per week. Stuff like swimming is highly recommended for its cognitive benefits. Combine that with 2 to 3 strength training sessions. You also want to fuel your brain with the MIND or Mediterranean diet, prioritizing leafy greens, berries, and healthy fats like olive oil. Make sure you get 7 to 9 hours of sleep, because honestly, that's when your brain actually consolidates those memories. Stay socially engaged to build your cognitive reserve. And finally, practice mindfulness meditation to keep that toxic stress hormone, cortisol, in check.
If you take away just one thing from this explainer, let it be this. Physical activity is not just about building muscle or improving cardiovascular health. It's fundamentally about brain health. It is the single most effective, natural intervention we have to improve brain function, spark the birth of new neurons, and preserve your long-term cognitive health.
Your brain is literally waiting for the signal to wake up, plug in, and get to work. So I want to leave you with this one question to think about right now. How will you physically move your body today to build a better brain for tomorrow? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope you step away feeling inspired to get moving.